What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall markets. I'm also going to talk about some big catalysts coming out for the day and for Tesla, as we have big news that came out. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 of free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. And deposit $25,000 or more, and you're guaranteed 75. The offer ends very soon in just 3 weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So, as far as Tesla goes, I just want to mention that during this pre-market session, we are attempting to rebound a bit. However, we have resistance at 244 and also at 247 to watch for, and we'll see how Tesla ends up responding to those. We also have some more data coming out, so I want to focus on the data first before I break down the charts. Even though the market is trying to rebound, just note that today is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. We have Kugler giving a speech. Then we have a bunch of other Fed speakers as the day goes on. We have Bostic and Jefferson giving their speeches alongside Collins. And then we just have a couple of business optimism reports. So the market also has the economic optimism index report at 10:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's about 40 minutes after the market opens. Look for some volatility. Besides that, there's not really much else coming out. I also want to mention that in terms of earnings, we have PepsiCo about to announce their earnings. We have a few more coming out. Most of these are not that major until we get to Friday when we have the big bank earnings. And I also want to mention that we're still waiting to see what's happening with the whole situation involving Israel. There are reports coming out that it's unlikely that they're going to be basically hitting nuclear sites, but they could be targeting other bases. So we'll see how that affects oil. That's something that's worth mentioning. As far as Nvda goes, Nvda has the second day of their AI summits. The conference are about to start, which is going to involve a lot of employees coming together and new innovators working together to help come up with new ideas and discuss their very important products and such. So I can't wait to see what is said about that. Nvidia has a big event again, which is leading to a lot more hype. For Amazon, we also have Amazon Prime Day today between October 8th and October 9th. There's going to be a lot of deals, so I just wanted to call that out. Sometimes the share price does improve with that coming out. And as far as the market goes, the market did see a little bit of a dip yesterday alongside all the bad news that came out because of what's happening with crude, not to mention, a lot of the news from the Fed and Apple getting the downgrade. But now the market's trying to rebound a bit. I personally hold the view the market will attempt to rebound temporarily, but there is still more downside waiting. Besides that, I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy on the news. It is worth mentioning that once again, many companies like GM and Ford are once again, despite some low expectations amongst Wall Street, they're once again continuing to invest in their EVs. So that's something that's worth mentioning. I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy, at least for now. Now, a couple of things about Tesla news. Okay, right over here, we have Tesla announced that the Model 3 long range RWD is going to be launching in the UK. That's a good piece of news for them. It's starting at about 45,000 pounds. We'll have to see how things end up going for that. Don't forget that the Model 3 RWD, that's not long range. It has a different variant and different prices, which could range between about 40,000 to about 50,000 pounds. And overall, not bad. It's very, very awesome to see. This is going to be very popular in many European countries. And it's great to see them getting a lot more exposure in Europe. Now, it's also worth mentioning that Tesla Cybertruck also got exposure today in Europe. There's been a lot of talk about it, but it's not as popular, at least thus far, according to reports, as Europe is full of like small streets. But it's not the end of the world. The Cybertruck is still going to be a big hit. It's still going to expand in many other regions, and Tesla's still expanding in Europe as we're seeing more sales improve. So that's a good sign for them. For the Robotaxi event, we have it on 10/10, which is 2 days away. As Tesla gets very close to the event, we could be looking for some upside. But for now, Tesla is still, once again, in a very, very interesting phase. So what do I see for Tesla? Look at 244 and 247 as resistance areas. If it rejects off that, we could be looking for a dip back down towards the 240 area. It's also worth mentioning we have 238 as the main supports. If that fails us, we start dipping even lower. So overall, we're on a bit of a downtrend here. We came back up, came down, we're making lower highs, and lower highs. So look for an attempt to push upon open to 244, if not 247 in that range. And we'll see if Tesla gets a rejection. If we break past 247, we will turn back up for 250 plus. If we can't break that, we could reject. So my gut tells me it's going to pop a little bit, then slow back down towards these lows. We might actually continue to sink as the market is still on a downtrend. It is attempting to rebound temporarily, but the move may not last. For SPY, we're trying to rebound as well. We could be looking for an attempt to get back up to about 570. to fill this imbalance. But I think even though it could push another 1 to 2 points to pop a little bit more, I still don't hold the view that the market's going to last at these levels. I still favor there's going to be downside coming for the month of October. So look for an attempt to push higher. It might push a little bit closer to the 570 area, maybe even the low 570s, but this is a tough resistance. Every time SPY hit 572 to 575, we did reject. So even if we get closer to that level, we could reject again for a pop and drop like move. That's the most likely case. If we pop to like 570 and come back below 568, expect a dip to 565 all over again, if not the low 560s, if that fails us. But look for a pop and drop. For ES, this could attempt to get up to 57.80, get very close to it. And if it rejects, we're looking for a move back down. We still have this gap to fill, so I still anticipate some downside. I don't think the move is going to last forever. For Nvda, this is still outperforming the market. We're looking for that 130 resistance. If that breaks, we could get closer to 132. So look for a little bit more upside potential in this with their big AI conference today. But just note that 130 is going to be a tough resistance, followed by 132. We could push a little bit more closer to 130, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get between that range. If we do break past 132, we're looking for 135. So 130 to 132 will be our first resistance zone, then 135. We could push those lows, but then I do think Nvidia will reject off one of those resistances because the way the whole market's going to drag it. For NQ, it's the same thing as SPY. This is trying to rebound. We still have that gap to fill below. We need to get back above 20,070 to turn back up. And then if 20,200 breaks, we turn more bullish. I think we might get closer to like 20,100, but there could be a risk of rejection and the move might not last. And we could be returning back down to the 19,000s. For the QQQ, we could attempt to go a little higher to about 484 to 485, but then we could reject again as we still have this gap to fill well below around 475. I think it's only a matter of time until we fill that gap. For Bitcoin, we are attempting to rebound. We're looking at this resistance around 62,500 and support at 61,800. We could be tipping lower as well on Bitcoin. It still has a bearish trend here, getting this rejection, so there is a risk of it dipping to about the 61,800 area. For Aapl to me looks a little bit more like on a downtrend. We have resistance around 224 and support to watch for at 222. If that fails us, we're looking for 220, then to move back down to this imbalance towards 216. We could push for 224, then reject and start tipping back down lower towards 220. So look for a pop and drop like move, and there is still a risk of downside. For the IWM, there's a bit of a downtrend right over here. We could attempt to push for 218. If we reject off 218, there's going to be a move back down to about the 215 area. So we'll be watching. If 215 fails us, we're looking for this gap to fall down to 212. But look for 218 or a little bit higher. Then we'll see if we get that rejection back down. Let's look for a pop and drop like move. For Coinbase, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. We need to reclaim 170 to turn back up. Otherwise, we're at risk of coming back down to about 161. Amazon, despite it being Prime Day, I just want to say we're barely holding 180. If 180 fails us, we're looking for 178. The resistance at 182.91, followed by 184. We could push a little bit higher than reject and make our way back down to this imbalance. So watch all of that very carefully. For Meta is dipping. We're barely holding our 20 EMA. If 583 fails us, we're looking for a dip back down to 578. And we have this resistance to watch for all the way up towards this 590 area. So for 590's resistance and a dip back down to 583, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get from here. For Microsoft, we're on a bit of a downtrend right over here as well. I think that there's a risk of us coming down to fill this gap. We'll see if 410 holds. If not, we're at risk of coming down to about 402. So watch and see how this ends up reacting. For Google, we have a double top leg structure. We have resistance around 166. If this rejects, we're looking for a move back down to where this gap is all the way down to 163. So I still see a risk of downside for Google. So be very mindful of that. So with that being said, I think the market's attempting to rebound a bit, but I don't expect the move to last. I still think there's going to be downside potential later on, and this could drag Tesla lower. Tesla needs to try to break past 244, if not 247, to turn back up. We could attempt to push a bit, but then there might be a risk of us rejecting and coming back down to like 238 eventually. If that fails us, we're looking for a bigger dump down to our 200 EMA into the lower 230s. So the market had a lot of bearish news yesterday, especially as we're waiting for what's happening with Israel and Iran. We're also waiting to see what happens, at least as time goes on, with more data. But that's why the market's still kind of performing like this. I just want to thank you all for listening. So have a great day and watch your levels carefully. I'll be back in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, thanks again and peace out.